One thing I've noticed about photographers is they can be extremely dogmatic when it comes to the technical or supposed right way of making a photo. I've been sharing photography content online for about 4 years now, and I have noticed this very serious attitude towards something that I perceive to be a creative expression. So why is there such a push towards, and general consensus in many communities of photography, that insist we follow the rules and adhere to these sometimes very prescriptive and outdated laws of photography and its process? Let's investigate this notion by comparing photography to other art forms in a bid to figure out if we are all taking photography too seriously, and if so, why? The first thing I want to discuss is who photography appeals to. One thing I have learned from having thousands of conversations with photographers online and reading through the comments section in these type of videos is that the people that are attracted to photography tend to be that of an engineering mindset. A lot of the time, it tends to be a person who is very technically focused and interested in the functions and the engineering aspects of the camera. It almost becomes a sub-interest of photography that is more about the mechanics of the camera. When we interact with photography in this way, it tends to put the actual resulting image as a secondary thing to the machine, which is the camera. For example, I personally know someone who has over 100 film cameras and collects them, but they haven't shot a roll of film in years. They are far more concerned with the mechanics of the camera and the collecting side. So they enjoy photography as a hobby completely differently to me, despite my background. Two people with the same hobby who enjoy it completely differently, but I would argue that there are a significant amount who are interested more so, or at least get swept up by, the gear aspect of photography, rendering the image making and the actual result less important, or at least making the result more about the image quality, the bokeh shape, the depth of field, the fall off, the dynamic range. These are all reflections of the camera's functions and not the photographer's artistic expression or the subject or composition choice. I find this really fascinating, and as somebody who resonates more with the latter points, I tend to feel quite isolated and definitely in the minority here online. A quick deep dive into my YouTube analytics will show you that my audience is split between 90% male viewers and only 10% female viewers, which I find astounding, and whenever I tell anyone, they are also very shocked by that. I am a female sharing photography content online, so I thought I would garner a more female-focused audience. My theory here is that men are on YouTube searching for photography content in the way of camera reviews and really interested in that engineering tech side of things. Whereas women are still interested in cameras, but more in relation to the photo and the kind of result that they want to get. And once they have that, they might not be so interested in all of that other stuff about the camera. Obviously, this is totally speculative, and I acknowledge that there will be some crossover here. I know women who are very interested in cameras and totally nerd out on all of that stuff, and I also know men who are really just concerned with taking photos and the result, and they're not interested in cameras. So it's not a general rule, but I think my analytics show that that is probably what is going on. So the very fact that we now know photography generally tends to attract that engineering mindset person puts a focus on how we use the camera and its functions. This leads to a lot of comments on how you should be using your camera, or what you could have done to use the features of your camera to get a perfect image, because the engineering-minded person is thinking about photography through that lens. I think that this is a huge reason why photography is seen as quite a serious thing, or a lot of the conversations and discourse around photography tend to lean more on the serious side than the artistic or creative side. This is merely an observation to try and decipher why photography is taken so seriously, and I am by no means saying that taking it seriously isn't allowed. I think that you should enjoy the hobby however you want to. I just find this interesting. If I meet someone and I ask them what they do and they tell me that they're a musician, I'll probably ask them what kind of music they play. I think it's fair to say that in general, the average person is pretty aware of the vast array of different music genres out in the world. The musician can say, oh, I'm in a punk band, or I play jazz, or I play classical piano, and nobody blinks an eye because we understand the large breadth of different genres in the music industry. My honest experience with photography has been the complete opposite. Whenever I tell someone who isn't into photography themselves that I'm a photographer, they normally follow up with assuming I am a wedding or family photographer. Responses like, oh, my sister's getting married soon, I'll have to tell her about you, are really common without them even asking what kind of photography I do. Don't tell your sister about me. If I told them what I really do and how I make videos about photography and I take photos of buildings and like weird just found objects and trash, and that's my job and that's how I interact with photography, I think their head would explode. So I just don't bother. I guess the point I want to illustrate here is that when you tell the everyday person that you're a photographer, they just assume that your genre or style will sit somewhere in the equivalent of classical music and yacht rock. These are both styles of music where polish and precision take precedent to vibe, fun, and creating outside the box of genre regulations. They will likely assume that if photography is your job, you will be using the latest and greatest camera to achieve the best possible image quality with the best lighting, sharpest focus, and highest resolution possible, because that's what a photographer should do, right? No one really cares if a guitarist in a punk band only knows 3 chords, and if the songs are good, they're still called a musician. So if someone owns a point and shoot that they shoot on auto, but they take amazing photos, are they still not considered a photographer? I would love to know if you watching have ever experienced anything like this online or in person, and how you view the photography community as a whole. Do you think they're fun, creative, laid-back people, or do you think that they are serious people that are very concerned with things being done a certain way? Or is it a mix of both, and this is simply something that many genres experience? I would love to hear your thoughts here, and I am excited for anyone who enjoys photography in any way that they want to. I just thought that this was an interesting observation and love to bring these longer form thoughts here on YouTube to discuss with you guys.